Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Literary Lore. Today, we're continuing our series on Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, specifically chapters 17 through 22. We're getting dangerously close to the end, and like most literary works we'll be covering on this channel, it is in the public domain and easily accessible for free with a quick search. I have included a link to the novel in the description. If you haven't seen the previous episodes, Frankenstein's monster can talk, and he has a simple request. You must create a female for me, with whom I can live in the interchange of those sympathies necessary for my being. This you alone can do, and I demand it of you as a right which you must not refuse to concede. Naturally, Victor disagrees and rejects the creature's plea. Now, the monster, an 8-foot corpse baby, reminds him why Victor owes him a mate. I am malicious because I am miserable. Am I not shunned and hated by all mankind? You, my creator, would tear me to pieces in triumph. Remember that, and tell me why I should pity man more than he pities me. You would not call it murder if you could precipitate me into one of those ice rifts and destroy my frame. The work of your own hands. So the creature already confessed to murdering Victor's little brother, and yet he says that he did it because he was sad. He calls out Victor and all of humanity for treating him terribly because of his horrible appearance. Because as he says, if he can't inspire love, he will cause fear. His extended petitioning eventually moves his creator's heart, especially when he explains his plan should Victor bestow a wife upon him. Essentially, they will depart to South America and remain hidden from humanity. It's worth knowing that this conversation could almost be seen as a prayer in which the creature attempts to bargain with his creator. He exalts Victor as he speaks to him, which, as you may recall, is pretty much what he wanted nearly 15 chapters ago. He's a god now, a creator, face to face with his own imperfect creation, and he feels compelled to acquiesce to his demands as long as the creature promises to leave him alone. I swear, he cried, by the sun and by the blue sky of heaven and by the fire of love that burns my heart, that if you grant my prayer, while they exist, you shall never behold me again. Depart to your home and commence your labors. I shall watch their progress with unutterable anxiety. And fear not but that when you are ready, I shall appear. Before we continue, let's talk about the Bride of Frankenstein. His existence is misery. His solution is 1, to replace that pervasive loneliness with a relationship. Bad move. And 2, to inflict the same dreadful existence on somebody else. The creature had no choice, and he's taking that choice away from his prospective mate. Again, we see Min moving the plot, and a female character serving little more than a motivation. She's a plot point. Her identity is not a question, because her purpose is to make the creature happy, or rather, less miserable. It's why I referred to her as Eve, despite that name not being used in their discourse. It's specifically because her existence would solidify the creature as Adam. Having another of his kind would validate the references to Paradise Lost and Genesis by essentially labeling him a new creation. Without her, the alternative he's set for himself is to be Satan, an entity that exists only to steal, kill, and destroy. As a result, he would rain destruction on his adversary, Victor. Now, while chapter 17 may end with Victor resolved to create a wife for the creature, early in chapter 18 he admits that he's been procrastinating for a few weeks, and that throughout this time he has suffered from depression, and he's been steeped in this anxiety of his coming task. His father, observant as ever, figures out that he must be nervous about marrying Elizabeth, and encourages him to go on a boys' trip with Henry, while he initially plans to slink off to England to find fresh materials. Elizabeth arranges for him to trek across Europe with his second favorite person, with his return set to be marked by the long-awaited wedding. As you may recall, Henry is a living symbol of the romantic ideal, the belief that nature is the source of all that is good, while society and all its components are unnatural and corrupting. It's been a theme bubbling throughout the novel. The creature loves nature. He sees beauty in everything. He yearns to experience that facet of life, but is himself completely unnatural. Conversely, Victor continuously forsakes nature to engage in unnatural arts. It's poisoning his soul, and even now he's surrounded by the majesty of nature, and he is only able to glimpse a fragment of the beauty around him. Alas, how great was the contrast between us! He was alive to every new scene, joyful when he saw the beauties of the setting sun, and more happy when he beheld it rise and recommence a new day. He pointed out to me the shifting colors of the landscape and the appearances of the sky. "This is what it is to live," he cried. "Now I enjoy existence, but you, my dear Frankenstein, wherefore are you desponding and sorrowful?" In truth, I was occupied by gloomy thoughts, and neither saw the descent of the evening star nor the golden sunrise reflected in the Rhine. Henry is a man full of life and joy, an innocent man, enraptured with the glory surrounding him. And for as Victor recalls all these things about his late best friend, he suffers an outburst that may serve as a bit of foreshadowing. "And where does he now exist? Is this gentle and lovely being lost forever? Has this mind so replete with ideas, imaginations fanciful and magnificent, which formed a world whose existence depended on the life of its creator, has this mind perished? Does it now only exist in my memory? No, it is not thus. Your form, so divinely wrought and beaming with beauty, has decayed, but your spirit still visits and consoles your unhappy friend." So Henry at some point is going to die. And again, we've been given this death without the cause yet made clear for us. So building on that anticipation of what will unfold, we know that Victor has promised to create Eve. But will Henry die because he breaks that promise? Or perhaps the creature who claims to be good, despite murdering a child, will go back on his word. It could even be that something else happens entirely unexpected. The point is that now we have that info and must marinate in it while the plot unfolds, though we won't have to wait quite as long as we did for the last one. Once in England, Victor isolates himself and secretly starts procuring the various parts he needs to create the creature's wife. Throughout this time, he knows the monster stalks him, but has not seen him since the deal was made. He alternates between his dark arts and rambling through the English woods with Henry, stating that his soul has been irreparably tainted. Much of Chapter 9 continues in this way, describing their vacation with references to his compiling of corpses sprinkled throughout, until they at last reach Scotland. He stays in a secluded hut on a tiny island, crafting the woman. In this manner I distributed my occupations when I first arrived, but as I proceeded in my labor, it became every day more horrible and irksome to me. Sometimes I could not prevail on myself to enter my laboratory for several days, and at other times I toiled day and night in order to complete my work. It was indeed a filthy process in which I was engaged. During my first experiment, a kind of enthusiastic frenzy had blinded me to the horror of my employment. My mind was intently fixed on the consummation of my labor, and my eyes were shut to the horror of my proceedings. But now I went to it in cold blood, and my heart often sickened at the work of my hands. Armed with hindsight, he realizes how vile his actions have been. He can't defend his previous activities, and he derives no joy from the labor. He begins to rationalize reasons that he shouldn't provide the creature with a mate. She might become 10,000 times more malignant than her mate and delight, for its own sake, in murder and wretchedness. He had sworn to quit the neighborhood of man and hide himself in deserts, but she had not, and she, who in all probability was to become a thinking and reasoning animal, might refuse to comply with a compact made before her creation. They might even hate each other. The creature who already lived loathed his own deformity, and might he not conceive a greater abhorrence for it when it came before his eyes in the female form? She also might turn with disgust from him to the superior beauty of man. She might quit him, and he be again alone, exasperated by the fresh provocation of being deserted by one of his own species. Worse still, he even ponders the possibility of them procreating, which, I mean, come on, Victor, you're building them. Did you equip the creature for that task? Anyways, in the middle of all those thoughts, he looks up at a hole in the ceiling and he sees the monster smiling down at him and his soon-to-be wife. As I looked on him, his countenance expressed the utmost extent of malice and treachery. I thought with a sensation of madness on my promise of creating another like to him, and trembling with passion, tore to pieces the thing on which I was engaged. The wretch saw me destroy the creature on whose future existence he depended for happiness, and with a howl of devilish despair and revenge, withdrew. Yeah, the whole scenario is messed up, however you slice it. The creature didn't ask for the suffering. Victor doesn't want to bring another possibly murderous monster to the world. And by this point, each of them have allowed their misery to rule over them. And while there are any number of alternatives and reasonings that we could have attempted, well, the creature leaves them with this message. "Shall each man," cried he, "find a wife for his bosom, and each beast have his mate, and I be alone. I had feelings of affection. They are requited by detestation, scorn. Man, you may hate, but beware. Your hours will pass in dread and misery, and soon the bolt will fall, which must ravish from you your happiness forever. Are you to be happy, while I grovel in the intensity of my wretchedness? You can blast my other passions, but revenge remains. Revenge, henceforth dearer than light or food. I may die, but first you, my tyrant and tormentor, shall curse the sun that gazes on your misery. Beware, for I am fearless, and therefore powerful. I will watch with the wiliness of a snake, that I may sting with its venom man. You shall repent of the injuries you inflict." Snake imagery connects him to Satan, rage over his loneliness, and a vow to annihilate Victor. These are all very strong points, but he ends it with his real big one, the strongest of all. "It is well. I go. But remember, I shall be with you on your wedding night." Victor basically yells a threat at him in the two part ways. He takes a skiff, like a little boat, out to dispose of the evidence, and he takes a nap after he is free of Eve's ruined parts. This leads to a storm that throws him off course, and he starts to be afraid he's going to die. An indeterminate amount of time goes by before he arrives on the shores of Ireland, where he is immediately taken to the magistrate, accused of murder. Yeah, it's Henry. Henry's dead. Poor sweet Henry! The life crushed from his windpipe, evidenced by that same black thumbprint that William bore. Victor bursts into tears on hearing the news, and that, coupled with a handful of witnesses, baselessly accusing him of the deed, lead the magistrate to see his response to seeing the body. The examination, the presence of the magistrate and witnesses, passed like a dream from my memory when I saw the lifeless form of Henry Clerval stretched before me. I gasped for breath, and throwing myself on the body, exclaimed, "Have my murderous machinations deprived you also, my dearest Henry, life?" Two I have already destroyed. Other victims await their destiny. But you, Clerval, my friend, my benefactor. Yeah, his words don't exactly exonerate him, and immediately following this, he succumbs to another nervous fever. From a symbolic perspective, romanticism is dead. There's no more method of healing his corruption. Now that Henry has been murdered, he has slipped entirely into despair. Months go by before he recovers from his fever. And fortunately for him, the magistrate did some actual investigating and contacts Victor's father, who is able to vouch for his innocence. Nothing at this moment could have given me greater pleasure than the arrival of my father. I stretched out my hand to him and cried, "Are you then safe? And Elizabeth? And Ernest?" It's unfortunate that at this point, the list of people that matter to him has shrunk so much that Ernest almost makes top 3. That said, thanks to his dad, he is eventually freed and picks up a new hobby. Ever since my recovery from the fever, I had been in the custom of taking every night a small quantity of laudanum. For it was by means of this drug only that I was enabled to gain the rest necessary for the preservation of life. Oppressed by the recollection of my various misfortunes, I now swallowed double my usual quantity and soon slept profoundly. So the burdens of his sins have become so great, he artificially tries to cope with laudanum, which is better known as opium. Yet even this does not release him from the horrors of what he's done. His addiction could also be an indicator that he is completely cut off from that purifying beauty of nature. While journeying with his father, Victor also attempts to confess that he is responsible, but he still avoids explaining why he's responsible. So it just seems like he's grief-stricken. His dad assures him it isn't his fault. He thinks he's a little crazy. And he says, and this essentially reminds us of an important question. At this point, where does the blame lie? We asked it a few episodes ago. Does Victor bear the brunt for not raising the creature? Is it the monster because he has full understanding of his actions? Or do they share the blame for the murders? Can we actually blame a serial killer's parents for their crimes? Now, to continue the plot. Elizabeth sends a letter that essentially amounts to, "But it is your happiness I desire as well as my own, when I declare to you that our marriage would render me eternally miserable, unless it would dictate of your own free choice. Even now I weep to think that borne down as you are by the cruelest misfortunes, you may stifle by the word honor all hope of that love and happiness which would alone restore you to yourself. I, who have been so disinterested in affection for you, may increase your miseries tenfold by being an obstacle to your wishes. Ah, Victor, be assured that your cousin and playmate has too sincere a love for you not to be made miserable by this supposition." I don't know why I gave her a slight Southern Belle accent, but that's where we are now. So Elizabeth, sweet, innocent Elizabeth, believes that Victor's depression is because he's in love with someone else. We know that is ridiculous. Victor is so enamored with himself and tormented by his own creation that there's barely room for Elizabeth, let alone another love. This does not stop her from worrying, and she reasons that he's so miserable because his honor is holding him back. His honor. This trash panda we've been following for the past few hundred pages has not at any point given us reason to expect he has a modicum of honor. He is driven by ambition and his God complex. He's committed numerous crimes against the law, nature, and God himself. Honor is nowhere on his radar. Yet, darling Elizabeth sees an entirely different man. The man that Victor thinks he is. Or was, rather. With that, the sibling lovers are reunited and decided it's time to get married. They make their preparations. In Victor's case, that includes a pistol and a dagger to defend himself against the monster. The wedding, all in all, lasts about 2 paragraphs and is swiftly followed by their journey to their honeymoon destination. A honeymoon that we will be seeing in the finale next episode. Leave your speculations on how things are going to end in the comments. And if you have any poems or stories you'd be interested in me covering, please suggest those as well. I actually already received a request to cover a play that we'll be looking into soon. But yeah, next week we'll be finishing Frankenstein and covering how all the themes kind of shook out with the interpretation of Shelley's work. Thank you guys for watching, and until next time, Carpe Diem.